ultimately a very resilient performance from the defense. Different guys stepping up at different points. Derek Wilkins stepped up quite a bit. What'd you like from what you guys were doing in terms of the rush and eventually containing the Louisville offense?
Yeah, like you said, it was super big for a lot of guys who hadn't been playing as much step up, especially Derek. With TJ being down, it was big for him to step up. And, I had no worries behind him. I know who Derek is. He's the same guy every day. So just seeing all the guys step up, it was real big for me.
Coach was in here earlier and he mentioned that 6 of 11 day one starters are not out there. Who are some of the guys in that limited opportunity who have stepped up from your perspective in trying to make this the best version of the defense possible?
Yeah, like you said, we were just talking about Derek. Aaron stepped up for Cade. You have Drew in the back end. Just a bunch of guys like that, who weren't here, starting day one that have really stepped up and are a pivotal point on this defense.
TJ, you guys made Louisville offense and Moss look pretty ordinary. Did you come into this game seeing something in the film room and the game plan that gave you guys the thought that you might be able to contain this offense and pull off the win?
Yeah, we knew they were a very talented offense, but we just had faith in ourselves. We knew the type of defense we had and the type of team we had at that. So we just kept on trusting our practice. When times get hard, the coaches always say, fall back on your training. And we feel we practiced very hard, so we had no worries. Like I said, going into overtime and everything, we just trusted our training.
You guys stepped up big and stopped Louisville and forced a field goal in overtime. What was going through your heads as a defense, seeing the coaching staff put it all on the offense? You had no say in what was going to happen there. Were you guys kind of pumped or nervous?
I'd say a little bit of both. It's one of those things, a double-edged sword. If we get it, go for it and get it. It's good, like we celebrate now. You go for it and don't get it. But me and the guys have the utmost confidence and respect in Coach Wilcox and the staff. We know they're always going to make the right decision to put us in the best choice. So, like I said, it's one of those things. It just the chip falls how it does. But I didn't have any worries. I knew those guys like Jaron, Jacob. I see what they do every day in practice. So just seeing them show everyone else, it's real good to see.
You guys are bowl eligible now, but beyond that, what does this do for your confidence as a team?
It's super big. Especially going into a bye week, and then we have a tough Stanford team. Big rivalry week, so that's definitely something that's big going into the bye week, but we can't let it affect us too much, like Jaron said, enjoy it tonight, but then as soon as practice comes Monday, we got to hit it hard.
Nice to have a bye to
definitely
sort of ruminate on a big win instead of having to stew about a loss.
Definitely.
All right, we'll go to Matt Moreno on Zoom.
There's always talk, TJ, in games like this about belief, and how important was that for you guys in a game where it came down to literally the last play of the game?
Yeah, belief is big. Going into halftime with the lead, we couldn't let it affect us too much. We had to just stay doing what we were doing. And, even going into overtime, we gathered the defense up. We said just try to stop them. Worst case, holding the 3, and let our offense do what they do.
All right, Joaquin.
TJ, can you describe the locker room after just a win, such an emotional win like that came down really to the buzzer? Can you just talk about how everyone was going, I'm assuming, wild in there?
Yeah, definitely. I would say this is probably the most electric I've seen in the locker room so far. I saw a couple of tears from some people, so it was definitely a surreal feeling, especially, a big win against a ranked team. On top of that, being bowl eligible. So it was definitely, it might be my favorite locker room memory of college so far.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Congrats, TJ.
Thank you. What was your level of yelling in there?
10 out of 10.
All right. No problem.